The Crown's Weight. Chapter 1. The Tomb of Salt. The tomb's doors split like a broken jaw. Kael shoved his shoulder into the seam, iron gauntlet grinding until stone groaned open. A rush of air sighed out, salted sharp, sour with rot. "Smells like a charnel pit," Risa muttered, torch raised. Her sword rested on her shoulder, edge scarred from a dozen raids. "Quiet," Kael said. 7 in all, they entered. Risa close, quick as a drawn blade. Darren in rust-patched plate, every step a groan. Brannick with his split lip and battered shield. Garen the boy, eager and green. Arendor, the old priest, half-blind and muttering. And Joran, the scribe, notebook clutched like a talisman. Kael brought up the rear, axe in hand, listening to his men's breath echo too long in the spiral. Another tomb, another fool's errand. Gold never lay easy, and nothing buried wanted to stay that way. The stairwell curled downward. Salt crystals bloomed on the walls, catching torchlight in cruel shards. Every bootfall creaked as though the steps were hollow. A hiss broke the silence. Steel rasped free. Joran yelped. From a crack in the wall, snakes spilled pale and blind, tongues flicking. They slid across boots and vanished into dark. "Bloody worms," Brannick muttered, trying to sound steady. "Salt keeps what crawls alive," Arendor whispered. His milky eye shone in the light. "And what crawls feeds what sleeps." The words lingered in Kael's skull like grit in water. They pressed on, steps grinding, torches spitting. Twice a stone clattered ahead and froze them. Once a step cracked under Brannick's weight. Each corner felt like something crouched, ready to spring. The passage widened into a hall. Pillars rose thick as towers. Torchlight ran across wall reliefs. Figures bound hand and foot. Mouths stretched wide in silent screams. Salt crystals encrusted their eyes like frozen tears. "What is this place, priest?" one of the mercenaries asked. Arendor's voice came low. "The Tomb of Salt. They buried oaths here, and the kings who broke them." "Kings?" Darren's voice wavered. "They buried kings here?" Arendor's mouth twisted. "They were called kings once, dead now, and even then, their crowns weren't theirs. The salt made them mighty, not blood or right. What's left are hollows, shells of what they were." Brannick shifted, uneasy. "Then who in their right mind goes digging there?" Arendor's voice dropped, almost a smile. "The regent. Who else clings to relics, praying they'll paint his stolen crown as true?" Kael's scowl cut sharp in the torchlight. "The regent. False pretender. Carrion crow, chasing bones and dust. Best keep that bastard far from our path." A drath hissed through the hall, torchlight shivering across the salt-veined throne. The name hung heavier than the air. His torch caught it then, a throne at the hall's center, carved from salt, veined red like dried blood. Upon it rested a crown, black and blunt, its spikes thick as nails driven through bone. The hall seemed to lean toward it. The faceless statues bowed. "That's it?" Brannick sneered, though his voice cracked. "A lump of iron?" "Not iron," Arendor rasped. His blind eye wept in the torchlight. "Bone, shaped in fire. An artifact not made for men, yet men called it fit for kings." The weight of it dragged at Kael's eyes. He tightened his grip on the axe. Garen broke ranks. "I'll claim the prize, Captain." "Leave it!" Kael roared. Too late. The boy's hand closed on the crown. Its edge cut him deep. He dropped it with a cry. The crown rang against the floor. The sound carried like a struck bell. For a heartbeat, nothing moved. Then came the cracks. Hairline fractures webbed the pillars. Dust sifted down in veils. Fingers twitched in the carvings. Salt flaked from limbs like scabs. Then the stone itself shuddered, a low groan deep as the earth's marrow. The floor heaved under their boots, a tremor running through the hall like something stirring far below. Cracks widened with a sound like splitting bone. "They're moving," Brannick whispered. "No," Risa said, though her blade was already rising. One statue bent forward. Its head turned with a grinding creak, eyeless sockets blazing faint amber. Another tore free beside it. Then another. The guardian stepped free, half stone, half corpse, torsos fused with crystal. Axes of salt, blades rimed with frost. "Circle!" Kael barked. The first axe fell. Brannick caught it on his shield. Wood split to the boss, driving him to his knees. "Shield's gone!" he barked, spitting blood. Before it finished him, Arendor thrust his staff down, scattering blackened salt. A dull red line flared across the floor. The guardian staggered, limbs shuddering. For a breath it froze. Then it roared and broke through, ward shattering. "Not for long!" Arendor spat blood. Risa darted in, sword flashing, carving the guardian's arm away. The severed limb twitched until she stamped it to shards. Another swung for her. Arendor slammed his palm to a pillar and croaked a word that rattled Kael's teeth. The guardian froze mid-swing, axe trembling inches above her head. She rolled clear. The spell shattered. The axe slammed down, cracking stone. Arendor reeled, coughing blood, smoke curling from his nostrils. Kael split another guardian's skull, shards stinging his cheek. "Stone's softer than it looks," he growled. Duran bellowed and hewed at a guardian's side. Sparks flew, his blade barely biting. "It's like hacking a mountain," he shouted, sweat streaking the dust from his face. A salt blade slashed Brannick's thigh. He screamed, blood spattering. Risa dragged him back by the collar. "Stay up or you're dead twice!" She hacked the guardian's knee out and rolled clear as it toppled. But the line was breaking. The circle sagged, men staggering, breath coming ragged. Even Kael's arms ached with the weight of the axe. The guardians pressed in, endless, tireless, each strike harder than the last. For a heartbeat, Kael felt it. They were not going to hold. Joran cowered near the wall, torch high, notebook clutched. His hand shook as he scribbled a single word again and again. "Kneel." Ink spattered, blotting the page, though he hadn't even realized he'd written it. At the center, Garen knelt, clutching his bleeding hand. The guardians froze. Their heads turned as one. Kael turned too, and heard it. From the crown spilled a whisper, soft as breath, sharp as command. "Kneel." The earth shook so hard it nearly dropped him to his knees. His legs buckled. Darren sagged half a step. Even Brannick, bleeding, began to bow. Risa snarled, shoving Darren upright. "Stand, damn you!" Arendor dropped too, not in submission, but clawing ash into a trembling circle. He chanted hoarsely, veins bulging black, blood streaking his lips. The whisper bent around him, like water around stone. The wound gaped wider, but it was the crown that breathed through it. "Kneel." Torches guttered. The air thickened with brine. Salt dust drifted like falling snow. The guardians stilled. Even the tremor hushed. For a breath, the hall listened. Garen's grin split too wide. His eyes were black pits. When his mouth opened, the whisper became his voice. "Kneel." Chapter 2. Ambush in the Wastes. The wind met them howling. Kael shoved the tomb door closed with his shoulder, stone grinding shut on the whispering dark. Salt dust clung to his beard. Brannick limped, bloodied. Arendor spat red into the snow. Garen walked pale and silent. his wounded hand bound in a rag already black with seep. No one spoke. They trudged across the wastes, torches guttering in the gale. The night stretched wide, stars sharp as splinters. Wolves shadowed the ridges, shapes just blacker than the dark, eyes glinting green in torchlight. Their breath plumed in faint clouds when the moonlight caught it. Now and then, a low snap of ice echoed from the ridge, sharp as a whip. Risa froze, fingers tightening on her hilt. "Let them come," she muttered. "They will," Kael said. "Not yet. Wolves don't rush a fire. They wait until you've bled enough." And now, Kael noticed something new. Collars glinting faintly under the moonlight. Strapped to the necks of the ridge wolves were small iron bands, etched with the same crowned sun that painted the shields of the soldiers marching ahead. The regent's dogs, wolves as well as men. They crested the first ridge when Brannick stumbled. Blood ran freely from his thigh, soaking the binding Risa had knotted. Kael bit back a curse. They needed fire, shelter, time, and the wastes gave nothing but wind and ice. And the horn sounded, low, long, rolling across the night like thunder. Its echo clung too long, as though the dark itself carried it back. Kael froze. The others looked to him. "Soldiers," Darren said, voice tight. Figures moved on the ridge ahead, men in half-plate and boiled leather, shields painted with the crowned sun of the old king. Between them, the collared wolves prowled, eyes bright and teeth bared. Their growls joined the wind, a chorus of teeth and steel. "Royal men," Brannick whispered. "Not royal," Arendor rasped. "Not anymore. Regent's dogs." At their head marched a captain in black mail, a wolf pelt cloak whipping behind him, his face hidden by a steel half-mask etched with crude sunbursts. His longsword gleamed in starlight. His voice was flat, metallic, carrying over wind and wolf. "Drop the crown, by order of the regent. His voice hunts you." Risa spat blood into the snow. "His breath reeks of the grave where the true king lies." The captain tilted his head, and through the slit of his mask his eyes burned like coals. "Then let the grave take you." He raised his blade. "Advance!" The ridge erupted, wolves and men surged as one. Kael met the captain head-on. Steel rang, sparks spraying. The man's strikes were clean, drilled, each one driving Kael back a step. The regent trains his dogs well, Kael thought grimly, sweat freezing on his brow. Brannick hacked low, his axe catching a wolf's collar with a clang. The beast recoiled, yelping, then lunged again, teeth snapping close to his throat. He shoved it back with a roar, blood soaking his thigh. Risa fought like fire itself, her blade cutting arcs that flashed white in the torchlight. She drove a soldier to the snow, pivoted, struck a wolf in the muzzle, turned again to parry another blade. Her breath came ragged, her curses sharper than steel. Garen fought one-handed, his bound wrist clutched to his chest. Even crippled, he cut deep into a soldier's mail, dragging the man down with sheer stubborn strength. His teeth bared with pain, but he did not yield. Arendor slid through the fray like smoke, staff tracing jagged sigils in the air. Where he passed, armor plates seared with black salt, seams splitting as if rotted through. A wolf lunged. He turned aside, thrust his palm forward, and the beast spasmed as smoke burst from its collar. Snow swallowed its scream. Then a new sound cut through the clash, a guttural chant, grinding like stone on stone. A robed priest stood behind the shield line, arms lifted. His fingers carved jagged signs in the air, torches bent sideways, flames stretched thin as if pulled by unseen breath. The wolves' eyes flashed white. Their next charge hit harder, faster, bodies jerking as if yanked on strings. Soldiers roared, blades biting deeper, their frenzy rising beyond mortal lungs. Kael felt it, the chant pressing at his chest, driving his heartbeat out of rhythm. Trying to seize his arm and force it down. He snarled, shook it off, and slammed his blade back against the captain's. Sparks burst, blinding bright. The captain pressed close, voice a rasp under the mask. "The regent does not forgive! Yield now, and your deaths will be clean!" Kael shoved him back with a roar. "We've no use for clean deaths." The fight tore across the ridge, a storm of steel and bone. Blood streaked the snow. The chant deepened, vibrating in their teeth. Wolves snapped and howled. Soldiers pressed harder. The captain's blade never relenting. Then, a whistle split the chaos, shrill, cutting, impossible to ignore. The wolves froze. Some yelped and bolted, others slunk back to the ridge as though leashed. Even the soldiers faltered, blades wavering, eyes glazed. The chant faltered, guttering like a flame in rain. "Now!" Risa hissed. They broke from the press, cutting down the slope, every step a stumble through churned snow. The captain's masked face glared from the ridge as they fled, the priest at his side still whispering broken syllables. At last, the wastes fell silent. Only the wind moved. They collapsed in a hollow, bodies heaving, blood steaming faintly in the cold. Brannick groaned. Garen tightened his bandage. Risa leaned on her sword like a crutch. "They'll come again," Brannick muttered. "They always do," Kael said. And from far across the wastes, the horn's echo lingered, low, rolling, endless. Not a sound, but a promise. Chapter 3. The Kneeling Village. The storm slackened by dawn, leaving the air sharp as glass. They crested a low ridge and saw what looked like the remains of a village crouched in the hollow below. Half the huts had collapsed under snowdrift, the rest sagged like broken teeth. The place looked lifeless, too still, as though sound itself had frozen. Risa slowed, eyes narrowing. "We go around." "We can't," Kael said, voice hoarse from the march. "River bends east. We blues a day." "Better a day lost than a horn blown to the regent," she snapped. "Villages mean eyes, and eyes mean dogs on our trail." Arendor rasped, his blind eye watering in the wind. He only muttered a word in the old tongue, too faint to catch, and kept walking. They descended in silence, boots crunching ice. No dogs barked, no hammer rang, no voices carried. The huts loomed mute and sunken, as if the snow itself had smothered them. The villagers noticed them only when the band reached the well at the center. One bent figure stirred, cloth-wrapped and hunched. Its head turned, slowly. Then, without a word, it sank to its knees. Another followed, then another. Within breaths, the entire square folded forward. Men, women, children. Each dropping as though pulled by a single unseen hand. Cloth rustled, knees struck snow, faces pressed into frost. Kael froze, hand brushing the satchel at his back. Risa hissed. "What are they doing?" Her other hand gripped her hilt so hard, her knuckles whitened. "If one of them rises, I'll cut them all down." Jorn's quill slipped, blotting the page. His hand shook, yet the nib kept moving, steady as if pressed by another will. Jagged words spilled across the parchment. They kneel. All of them, soldiers, priests. Not to us, to the crown. He blinked, horror dawning, as though seeing the words only once, they already filled the page. His breath came ragged, keeping time with the dull thud of foreheads striking stone and snow. Arendor's mouth twisted. "Salt remembers kings. They know what you carry." He murmured something low in the old tongue, a fragment of prayer that tasted of dust and ash. The nearest villager lifted his head. Lips moved in a whisper too faint for the storm, yet Kael heard it as clear as a blade. Kneel. The same word the crown had pressed into his bones. His throat tightened. Move! Now! They passed through the husk of the village with blades drawn, though no blade was raised against them. Breath steamed from bowed bodies like smoke from extinguished fires. None looked up. A child peeked through her fingers as they passed. Her eyes were black, glinting with something older than fear. She tilted her head, whispering a syllable Kael could not place. Garen stumbled past, clutching the satchel. The girl smiled, a smile too wide, too still, and vanished behind the bodies as suddenly as she had appeared. Risa's hand clamped on Kael's arm. Did you see? Keep walking. His jaw clenched. If he stopped, he feared his own knees would betray him. Behind them, the kneeling foims did not rise, not until the band had gone. They climbed out of the hollow. The night stretched wide, stars sharp as splinters. On the ridges above, hulking shapes hunched against the wind. At first, they looked like statues half buried in snow. Then a wing twitched, feathers shuddering in the stormlight. Owlbears. Dozens of them. Their shoulders were broad enough to crush a hut, their claws long as scythes. Hunters, man-eaters, beasts no steel line could withstand. Yet everyone knelt, beaks pressed into snow, wings half spread, pinned as though by invisible chains. Their breath fogged in heavy clouds. A few gave muffled hoots, not cries of beasts but strained groans, as if their very bodies resisted the bow. Risa's voice broke thin, sharper than before. Gods damn it, even they kneel? Kael's gut twisted. Instinct screamed to raise his axe, to ready for a charge that never came. What stood above them should have been their death, yet now it waited in supplication. His grip loosened. Not predators, not foes, not in this moment. The same force that pressed villagers into the snow, bent wild muscle and feather as easily as bone. They answer the same command. Kael murmured, whatever it is, it's not ours. And even with the wind in his ears, he felt the village's gaze pressing from behind, heavy as the crown against his spine.